Welcome to the Dreamboat. Remember, you can join the DRI for just £30 a year. You get access to more content, including videos and discounts for our events. It's a great way of finding out more about our work, joining our dream community, and supporting this podcast. Details in the show notes and at driccpe.org.uk/membership. Welcome to the Dreamboat podcast, a place where we talk about everything dreamy, all you wanted to know about dreams and where you might find some answers. My name is Dave Billington, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm also director of the Dream Research Institute. And I'm joined by fellow psychotherapist Laura Payne.
Hello, I'm Laura Payne, and I'm also part of the Dream Research Institute. And we're called the Dreamboat because we are recording our podcast overlooking the beautiful canal barges here at Little Venice in London.
We'll be looking at dreams, talking to guest experts, and answering your questions.
Now, let's get on with the episode.
Hi, this is Dave Billington, co-host of The Dreamboat. We're doing something a little different for this Dream Lab episode for Series 3 of The Dreamboat. We wanted to spend a bit more time with each dreamer, so this is Dream Lab A with Yas Floyer, and Dream Lab B with Damien Moore will follow it in your podcast feed. Yas and Damien both share wonderful dreams and are very generous in talking about what these dreams mean in their lives. So here's part A.
Okay, we are delighted that so many of you have got in touch to say that you enjoy our now regular slot, the Dream Lab. We enjoy it too. It's fun to take a guest's dream and run it through the various lenses that we tend to use as part of our own analysis work.
Yeah, and we hope that you also learn more about the various techniques that are possible for interpreting your own dreams and helping you to unearth your own dream symbolism. So, for instance, we like to play with the Jungian approach. We like to play with the Freudian symbolism, alchemical images, and the elemental model, which is something we've worked with quite a lot in our own training.
And of course, there is the DRI's own waking dream technique, and we'll show you how we work and hopefully give you a few pointers for your own dreams.
So first, we're joined by Yas Floyer, who is a journalist and parent, and she's going to share a recent dream that she had. Yas, welcome to the Dreamboat.
Thank you very much for having me.
So can you just start by telling us the dream and maybe any background to it as well?
Okay, so I'll start a little bit before the dream. This is actually an iteration of a recurring dream that I've had. Typically, my dream involves, so I'm a parent, as you said. It usually involves myself and my children rushing to an underground platform or an overground platform, but always in London, which is the city that we live. We are always hurtling down some steps, and the steps can be very narrow, icy, rain spilt with water, but they're always quite treacherous. That's always the defining feature of the steps. Get onto the platform, just about make our train. The doors close, and I realise that either my children are still on the platform or they're on a different carriage, and the trains become separated and the carriage is going one way and I'm going another way. But this always is the format of the dream. And I became a parent nearly 16 years ago. And a week ago, I had the same dream. And I should say that I'm in a very loving relationship and I'm fortunate to have my husband's support at home. However, when the children were smaller, I was on the train station by myself. And as they have gotten older, my husband sometimes is there and sometimes isn't. In this particular iteration of the dream, he was right beside me. We were both holding our children's hands, running down these stairs. Again, thought I was going to fall down, but we didn't. Made it onto the train platform. This time round, it was a London terminal leaving London. So it wasn't a train that was travelling within London, which is typically what tends to be the case within the dreams. And we get onto the train. The train doesn't pull away straight away. My husband and I breathe a sigh of relief. We've made it. We turn around. My children are nowhere on the train. again, the train hasn't pulled away, which is unusual. So I run off the train, run the short distance between the carriage and the platform cafe, and my kids are fine. They're there. My daughter's bought her little brother a hot chocolate because she says she had money. They're completely calm. I'm not, but they are completely calm. And she tells me, Mama, I would have just gotten on the next train and met you at the next station because I know you would have waited for me, or I would have phoned you and told you to come back. That has never happened before. I have never had a dream of that nature where we have been reunited and everything's been fine. So, yeah, that's the dream.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Can you just say a little bit about the emotions that were in the dream and how you were feeling when you woke up from it?
This particular dream, unlike the others, when I've woken up from the others, I feel quite sick with anxiety, and it has a lasting after effect in the daytime. It's a feeling that I can't shake, and it leaves me missing my children until I am physically reunited with them when they get back from school. This time around, I woke up and I had this overwhelming sense that everything is okay, like they are going to be okay. Almost like I don't know, it was just nice to see them take control. I wasn't the one in control, or I was probably the least responsible person in that last dream scenario. My daughter kind of had everything under control as opposed to me.
Yeah, I like it. I think this is a classic dream of where the psyche keeps throwing things at us when we're asleep, which, sometimes over several years we have to keep processing and processing. And then eventually we hear the psyche and we find a solution that we need to hear. In this case, your daughter wonderfully saying to you, "It is all right, mummy. I have got this." And that fearful part of you, which every mother would recognize, can sort of stand down. And it's interesting the many years of processing for you that's gone on till the last message can be heard.
Yeah, that's really interesting actually, because it's coincided with her. Now that I'm thinking about it, she's in year 11. She will be sitting GCSEs this summer. We're very much thinking about the next stages and, A levels, her potentially leaving home. And it's quite interesting that dream would kind of come now. Never really made that connection before.
Yeah, and it's a time of life when there might be more anxieties in a way, something changing and moving towards more independence. But I'm wondering, not even going near the symbolic for a moment, but just sort of how literal it is for you, how you see your daughter and how you feel in your relationship to your children. Do you feel like, oh, actually, yeah, they've got it? Or is there still a lot of kind of maternal anxiety around?
I'd say both. The thought of them leaving the house completely terrifies me. It absolutely terrifies me. I think when I compare my children to how I grew up, I was very much born in the 80s, product of the 90s. We were just let out of the house. You just played outside was a thing. Like, no mobile phones. Parents had no idea where we were playing. I mean, I was easily playing within a 2-mile radius of my home. That thought just frightens me. I wouldn't even, couldn't fathom allowing my children to do that. It's tricky. It's really tricky. I know that I am a very anxious parent in general because we've experienced some loss, but at the same time, I really want them to be independent. I don't know. I do feel very conflicted.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, as Laura was saying, naturally enough that a parent is going to be worried about their children. But I'm really interested in what you've described. First of all, just hearing about recurring dreams is really interesting because a lot of people have recurring dreams. They mean different things to different people according to their experiences. But that really represents something changing for you, a really familiar pattern that leads to this kind of devastating feeling. But here's a new version of it. And I'm wondering if you recognize a change in yourself, in how you are in the world, how you are as a parent.
I would say that in the past year, certainly, I've been doing a lot more for myself. So as my children have grown more independent, our youngest will be 10 next month, I'm doing a lot more activities for myself, going out a lot more, thinking a lot more about my career. So I think that's a really interesting question that you asked there, Dave, because I'm personally looking at my role as a woman as something separate to that of being a mother. So
Right.
yeah, that's something that's only been in the past year where I'm kind of, and I have actually explicitly been saying to them, this is something that I'm doing for me. So you all need to sort this element out at home for yourselves, because I'm very much going to be doing this thing.
Okay. I was wondering then about kind of going from the literal to the symbolic and looking at your daughter in the dream as being a part of you, and your children as being parts of you. So, it's not the people who are out in the world, living their lives and learning and growing as children do, but maybe is there something that relates to a part of you that is getting ready to go out in the world and maybe feeling more okay than in the past?
I think so. I think the reality of, and again, it's a very new thought. My husband and I had started our family when we were 24, so relatively young compared to the average. So when I think about the vast majority of my adult life, my identity as an adult woman is very much tied into that of being a mother. And I guess as they're getting older, I am starting to think about, well, who will I be when they leave home, or at least when my daughter leaves home? That will already be a large transition, even though I will still have a son at home. Just this idea that this little human, who is actually taller than me now, so not so little, will kind of be off doing her own thing. And yeah, I want her to be okay.
Yeah.
I also want myself to be okay.
Yeah. And when we're talking about dreams, we often say that they operate on different levels simultaneously. So there can be lots of different ways of looking at it, and hopefully those ways align in some way. Laura, what were you going to bring in before?
Yeah, I was thinking that a lot of parents forget or don't fully understand that separation anxiety, which this dream is, a professional would say this is about separation anxiety. We often think of it from a psychodynamic sort of point of view, which involves childhood, that the child has separation anxiety, but people forget that the parents do as well very often. It's called when when your child leaves home, as you've just talked about, it's often called as empty nest syndrome. But the separation, just generally, separation, as Dave was saying, from your old way of living and your old self-identification to the new you, there's a separation identity going on there as well. And it's a big thing, separation process. And I think the dream really taps into it at quite an acute level. And I'm loving the fact that you've got this resolution in the most recent sort of version, Mark IV or whatever we're going to call it. It's lovely that also you unconsciously recognise somewhere that you had changed the story.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't actually ever look at it as myself changing the story. That's actually really interesting. And it's interesting actually that you bring up separation anxiety and empty nesting, because that's exactly what I'm writing for at the moment for Psychology's magazine. So I'm very aware of that dynamic of the parent, the adult also keenly feeling that separation. I didn't. That's interesting how you've posited that, because I think when we look at our dreams, we always look at ourselves as the passive receiver of a dream rather than the sort of architect of it or the narrator of it. So that's definitely something that I'm going to give more thought to. Oh, and you know what? And as I am thinking about it, it reminds me of conversations that I've recently had with Kira that I think, she asked me recently if she could go ice skating, which involves her meeting up with her friends She knows, my children are well aware of this train dream. I've been having it for 15 years. They know about mummy's mad train dream. So she was to meet up with her friends, get on a train and go ice skating and then come back on her own. And I said to her, would you mind if I dropped you off at the train station? She said, that's fine. And I said, would you be okay with me? The train station's 5-minute walk from my house, by the way. And I said, would you be okay with me collecting you from the train station? And this isn't that I don't trust you, but this is very much for me, not for you. She was like, absolutely fine with that. Get to the train station. The train that she was meant to be on pulls in. Everybody comes off of the train. My daughter is not there. I'm panicking. The train operator lets me through. I get onto the platform. It's empty. I'm panicking. Call her phone. Can't get through. So obviously, I think my dream is coming true. What do? I've already, in a 30-second span, imagined the ITV News talking about this 15-year-old girl in London who's gone missing, last spotted at a train station. And then my phone rings. Kira says to me, I've got on the wrong train in the wrong direction. As soon as I figured it out, she got off the train, found reception and called me and told me exactly the train that she'd be getting on to get back. So in a way, the fact that it went completely wrong was a blessing in disguise, because it showed me how capable she was of resolving things. And I think that probably seeded this idea that she's okay, like she has what she needs. If things were to go wrong, she already, I kind of instilled that as a parent in her, and she's sensible enough to solve things.
Yeah. I'm reminded as well, and Laura, you'll remember we've talked to Michael Schredel and Katja Valley about threat simulation theory of dreaming, which is the idea that there's this kind of biological function of dreams, that it gives us a chance to rehearse terrible scenarios that we don't have to live through, and maybe find some options of dealing with them. It almost sounds like it's the opposite here, where the resolution has come through real life, and then the dream can have a little bit more of that settled, better outcome to it. But I'd be really curious to know what happens for you after this. Is that the end of the train dreams? Is that the resolution because it's okay now, or is there more?
I'm really curious. I'm really, really curious. And I was saying this to my husband as well, that I have 2 children, and my dream has always kind of focused on my eldest as the main character. And I think that in my mind, especially because we've had a loss in between, and our son is almost 6 years younger than our daughter, that quite a significant part of me still identifies him as the baby. He's so far behind his sister in terms of life milestones, that the idea that he will actually also be at a stage where he might want to go ice skating and get on a train on his own isn't even something that I've remotely fathomed. Whereas with my daughter, from the day we brought her home, I remember being so painfully aware that we were no longer sharing my body. She was separate to me. And I don't think I've made that. I have made that distinction with my son, but I haven't quite reconciled with the idea that he too will also leave. I'm sure that there will be more train dreams coming, is what I'm saying.
And again, naturally enough, right? Sorry, Laura.
Yeah. I was going to say, I'm intrigued by, you mentioned that you had a loss in between.
Yeah.
And again, that's devastating, and how the psyche is still processing that for you through the 2 children that are with you, and how this might help heal that part of you that is mourning in some way. The old part of you that holds that grief somewhere.
Yeah,
it gives you a chance to move on, but not forget. It feels like.
yeah. I think that point that you make is a really pertinent one, because when my eldest was in year 6, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with, they tend to. Well, a lot of primary schools send the children on a year 6 residential, so they're away from home for a week. And unlike when they're, with family members, you can't call them, you can't speak to them, there's no communication. when my eldest went on her year 6 residential, I had a really interesting trauma response to that, because my body could not understand that a child who wasn't here was still alive. So I think it definitely triggered a grief response. So I think that was the first time that I had to confront the idea that I illogically, irrationally, though understandably, attached the idea of a child not physically being in my home to them actually being dead. And that's not the case. But yeah, this iteration of my recurring train dream was almost like a balm. It was almost like you've done a lot of hard work as a parent to make them, encourage them to be independent. Because, whilst I'm very open and sharing my anxieties here today, this is not the way that I parent. I think that you've done a great job as a parent if your children don't need you. I want them to be okay without me. And that's very much how I that's very much my parenting style, even though it hurts me very much.
Of course,
It's difficult, but I do it. It's very difficult, and yet I do it. But yeah, I am really hoping that in my psyche, I'm kind of trusting that things will be okay. And also, you were talking a little bit, Dave, about dream symbolism. And whilst you were saying that, I was kind of thinking about the symbolism of trains and this idea of like a journey and a life journey.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's any Jungian or any other theories that you can speak to that involve trains specifically, or stairs, because those are the two things that always feature.
Yeah. Well, just staying with the trains for a moment, again, there's no rules about what any one thing means, but if you just kind of look at it in the round, that it is a form of transportation, and it is about, going on a journey, and it's collective as well. You join in with a collective journey, going somewhere together, and there's, places you might get off, and there's maybe a certain metaphor for, the timeline of life with that, as distinct from getting on a bicycle or going for a hike or getting in your own car and driving it, that kind of thing. And then with stairs, and Laura, you can maybe back me up on this, but what I really heard at the beginning of that was it's a descent. It's going down, which to me is like coming into the material world, being part of life. And it's not an easy descent, is it? It's slippery, it's dangerous, and that's where all the first feelings of kind of fear and danger seem to be.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now I'm thinking about that dream where this is, again, one of the most clear ones, where my eldest gets on a different carriage and the carriages separate. This happened a year ago, when she was starting her mock exam. So the conversations are very much looking forward and, what do you want to do with your life? And do you want to go to uni? What would you like to study? So I find that very interesting, because that time I would very much have been thinking about her as another person.
Her as another train.
Her as another train carriage.
This is her separate journey. It's such a massive area. I think people listening would find it quite fascinating how separation and loss and the transitions of life, how they then become deeply transformational. It's not just a transition, they lead something deeper. So it's quite alchemical in many ways. I was thinking also of Dr. Nigel Hamilton, who's the founder of the DRI. He's done a lot of study on movement in dreams, the going up and the coming down, and the going. You've also this time around got a train coming in and it's actually going out. And instead of it being the underground, which feels very sort of subterranean, it's like it's not the underground this time. It's been exposed to the light. It's a normal train. And it's, again, something that's being brought to the light in your psyche feels a really important part of this dream that you've presented, being different from the other ones. And also, Dave, I was just thinking about both Freud and Jung. A train, like a car, is very often seen as the vehicle for the ego, the self, as it travels through life. So when modes of transport appear in our dreams, it's often something to do with ourselves transitioning in some way, or transiting life in some way. It's a vehicle for the big S self.
That is so interesting because, the my traditional train dreams, my typical recurring train dreams were very London. Anyone listening who has been on the London Underground will not need any description of how dingy and grim it is. But this was actually a train that was like the Belmont Express, Orient Express. Don't know what that says about my ego at the moment, but
it's doing and it was just fine.
Completely intact. And it was summertime, bright skies, lots and lots of green, big leafed trees. So I didn't even make that distinction until you'd mentioned that.
Whenever there's that nature imagery around, it's always interesting to think about, are you in your nature? Are you connecting to your nature here? Beyond all the things that have happened in life and all the conditioning and the difficulties, getting down to who you really are. And so being able to find a journey that gets you there, it seems really valuable.
And we've talked before about the notion of the greening when green foliage appears, or green trees. That's always, for a lot of alchemists, is a symbol of immense change and transformation. So that feels really, really beautiful.
Oh, that's actually really very reassuring. And it reminds me of other dreams that I've had that have been reassuring. One that popped into my mind, if you don't mind me sharing, is at a time, so my mum has a heart condition that she was born with, and it affects her valve. But during lockdown, time of high anxiety, I also started having symptoms, and everything was fine. But with it being lockdown and me needing to, I think I needed to have 3 or 4 hospital checks just to kind of rule out that I hadn't inherited this condition. Before the results came through, and I had already convinced myself, because, Dr. Google told me that I have 100% inherited it. I had this dream of, again, now I'm realizing how much I dream about stairs, comfortably climbing to this rooftop, and it was a garden, and there were these huge size of your head green apples and like red apples. And I knew I was fine. Like, I knew that I was fine. And then 2 weeks later, I got the results and they were like, you're completely fine. You haven't gotten anything. But it's interesting that, it was natural imagery and like fruit, but larger than life fruit that was kind of symbolic of you're okay. And whilst there is nothing within the dream that connects directly to a heart condition or health, there was something about that kind of, I don't know, an apple. Yeah, we do look at apples as symbolic.
That's about how you feel about it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, an apple a day was something that you heard a lot when I was in school. But I just felt maybe this will be okay.
Yeah. Well, it seems to keep coming round to that. And we're going to run out of time in a moment here. So maybe that's a good place to end with, it's all going to be okay.
Love that.
Not to say that there isn't difficulties in life and, of course, anxieties that come up around that. Can I just ask, how are you feeling now, having talked about these dreams?
Yeah, feeling really good. Lots of food for thought. I think that I'll be paying a lot more attention to the symbolism of my dreams. I think I tend to pay more attention to the content and the feelings that certain dreams elicit, but I think I will definitely be paying more attention to the symbolism and the clues.
Lovely. Well, it's already valuable.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being so generous in your sharing of your dreams, and good luck with the next phase of your life. It feels really exciting.
Thank you so much.
So, thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Don't forget to like us and leave comments on your favourite podcast platform. As I'm sure you know, that's the way we build an audience for the Dreamboat podcast and also to spread news about dreaming. And as we said, there are many ways you can share your dreams at the DRI, the Dream Research Institute.
Yes, we have courses, events, and workshops, and we want to hear from you. So check out the show notes for links, or find us on Instagram and on our Facebook page and on our website at driccpe.org.uk. And if you want to explore your dreams further, or you would like to support us, you can join the DRI as a member for just £30 a year. As a member, you will get discounts for all of our events and short courses. You'll get our newsletter with latest dream research news, and we'll also be adding other special member benefits during the year. Of course, members' dreams will always be given preference for reading on the podcast Dream of the Week slot. So go to the link on the show notes and become a DRI member today. Keep dreaming and keep sharing your dreams.